Today we are going to mount your spooky Tim Burton portrait to a metallic frame so that it looks like it belongs in a gallery when we hang it up. In my example here, I created a black background and cut out my portrait. You have the option to do that, but you do not have to. If you choose to do a black background and you're going to cut out your portrait, you are going to use a white pencil to sketch the shape of your background onto black paper. You want to make sure you are paying careful attention to the size of your portrait. So here I am measuring a portrait against my frame to make sure it is going to fit in when I cut off the extra space. If you do not want to do a black paper background, or if you added a lot of detail into your background, we will just work with your portrait. So you will pick a piece of metallic paper and flip it over and position your portrait on the back so that you can trace the shape of your frame around it. For this one, I'm going to keep the frame really simple. I am just going to round out the edges, create kind of a rounded rectangular shape. So on the top, I did kind of a curve, and on the bottom, I'm actually just going to round off the corners, and I'm going to let the bottom of the paper be the bottom of my frame. After I cut out the metallic paper, I'm going to flip it over and position my portrait on top and see how I like it before I do anything to glue it down. Now that I'm positioning my portrait on top, I'm thinking that I don't want to keep the rectangle. I want to actually match the shape of my portrait paper to the shape of my frame. So I am going to go in and sketch out those rounded corners so that I can trim them off and make the shape of my inside portrait and my outside frame match. After I trim these corners off, I am starting to see that I do like this much better. So I am going to position it back on my paper just to make sure I'm happy with it. And I do like them both having that same shape. So I am going to go ahead, flip it over, and add just a couple dots of glue to attach my portrait to my frame. After you glue your portrait to your frame, you are going to use a Sharpie to write your first and last name as neatly as possible underneath. Then we are also going to use the Sharpie and add some detailing to make it feel more like a gallery frame. The reason we are using the metallic paper and framing them is because we want them to feel kind of fancy, nice, like they belong in an art gallery. So adding some detailing into the frame makes it just look a little bit more elevated. Don't be afraid to add extra details into your background. Whether you keep your portrait with the gray paper or you cut it out and add to black paper, you can still add some spooky detailing if you would like to. So you may have already added details to your gray paper, but if you choose to cut out and go on black paper, you will see you can still use a white colored pencil to add in a little bit of detail. So I am doing some spider webs because I really enjoy how they look in the background.